Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for Osteoporosis Canada's Cook with OC webinar. Now, before we begin today's webinar, Osteoporosis Canada acknowledges the land that our offices are on, located in Toronto, is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. My name is Tracie Napoli. I'm the Director of Fund Development and MARCOM at Osteoporosis Canada, and I'm going to be your cooking demo host. We want to thank our partner, Get Cracking, for supporting this Cook with the OC program. Today's program is going to provide general information about cooking and food knowledge. It's not intended as individualized health or nutrition advice, so if you have questions, I encourage you to talk to your healthcare provider or visit the Osteoporosis Canada website at osteoporosis.ca. Now, during the webinar, of course, we always love to hear from you. So if you have questions or comments related to the webinar, you can either click the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen, or you can enter your comments in the chat, and we will do our best to answer as many questions as we can during the webinar within the time available. Osteoporosis Canada's Cook with OC program works to provide you with strategies, new ideas, and develop recipes to help you get the nutrients needed for good health. Now, have you used the nutrient calculator yet? This amazing tool will help to inform you if you are getting enough calcium, protein, vitamin D, vitamin K, and magnesium, nutrients needed every day for bone health. You can visit the Osteoporosis Canada website and use it right on your laptop, or you can download the app, now available at the App Store or on Google Play. Now, did you know our featured ingredient today is eggs? And eggs are packed with essential vitamins like vitamin D, minerals, and high quality protein. A protein is considered high quality when it contains all 9 essential amino acids that can be easily absorbed and used by the body. And eggs are also one of the few foods that naturally contain vitamin D, necessary for bone health as it aids in the absorption of calcium. Osteoporosis Canada recommends routine vitamin D supplementation for Canadian adults year-round, but adding vitamin D enhanced foods like eggs and milk, which is fortified, to your diet is another great way to increase your intake of vitamin D, important for bone health. So we have other recipes featuring eggs on our website, and here's an example of another one, delicious phyllo egg strudels. You can get the full nutrient breakdown from the recipe section at osteoporosis.ca/recipes. And now our cooking demo featured recipe today. We are going to be preparing egg and chicken rice bowl, and each serving has 100 milligrams of calcium, 28 grams of protein, zero point 0.2 micrograms of vitamin D, 61 micrograms of vitamin K, and 50 milligrams of magnesium. And again, the full nutrient breakdown is available on the recipe page, and I will be putting the link to the recipe in the chat. It's now my pleasure to welcome Emily Richards, who's a professional home economist, freelance food writer, chef, and she is the author and co-author of 11 cookbooks. Emily also writes and develops recipes for print and online publications that include everyday cooking and healthy eating, and she can be found on TV, radio, and webcasts, just like this one. Hello, Emily.
Hello, Tracie. Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. It is
Happy
Wednesday, right?
Wednesday. Yes, I know it's been a bit gray the last couple of days, but it is, yes, today is Wednesday. Nice to see you. I was going to say, is this our first one for the new year? But no, it's not.
No, it's not. I know time is
No.
ticking away. January was like the year of January, and
I
now into
know.
February.
I
And oh,
know.
it's Valentine's Day on Saturday. So happy
Oh,
early Valentine's Day to
happy
everybody.
Valentine's, happy Galentine's. We send all our love to all our fabulous Cook with OC folks that join us all the time when we do these programs. And, not because we do it everyone, but we'll add a little bit extra in there of love as we send it. We're going to be giving away an apron, the lovely apron that Emily's wearing. So if you are on the webinar, at the end when we pull your name, you will get an apron and we will ship that to you. But yes, and this is a lovely dish that you can enjoy, your day, prepare it for yourself. Also for anyone that you choose to or not. It's up to you. You don't have to. Totally your choice. And but it's also, which we wanted to point out, Emily and I were chatting, we do get a lot of requests for gluten-free, and you can have this be a gluten-free recipe as well, as long as you read the product labels on some of the ingredients. And Emily's going to talk about that. So what are we making today, Emily? Let's get cracking. Haha.
Oh, good one. I like
Haha. There
that.
we
What an
go.
excellent idea,
What an
Tracie.
excellent idea. Okay, we'll talk to you in a little bit.
Thanks everybody for joining me this afternoon, this morning, this evening, depending on where you are. If you want to let us know where you're from, just kind of drop a note, say hey in the chat. That's always fun to see who's joining us and from where. It's always fun to see everyone from the globe that is able to join us. And today we're doing an egg and chicken rice bowl, which is fabulous because it has the ease of, making a rice dish, and super easy making eggs. And if you can hear my dog barking, it's because he's just so hungry. He wants to dive into this dish. So the great part about eggs is that they cook quickly. And I know in my house and in many people's homes that it is a staple in the refrigerator. So white or brown, doesn't matter what you have. We are using large eggs though in the recipe, and the Osteoporosis Canada recipes, we do always specify large. It tends to be kind of the largest section in the grocery store if when you're picking up your eggs, and so that's what the nutritional information is also based on as well. So I know Tracie's going to put the recipe in the chat so you can kind of follow along, which I always love when people follow along because then, if I miss an ingredient, you're on it. But I also do have the recipe in front of me because for me, this is something that I'm still a paper gal. I love having the paper or a cookbook in front of me when I'm cooking, as opposed to my phone because, it gets all sticky and who wants that? So we are going to get started with the rice, and I have all the ingredients out to make things easier. I have chopped everything except for the bok choy because we're going to talk a little bit about that. But we're going to start with the rice component, and we're using a short grain rice. So when you go to the grocery store and you see rice, because it's a nice big section of rice, you have basmati and jasmine, you have long grain rice, brown rice. We're actually looking for something called short grain rice, which you'll find as a sushi rice, or Calrose rice is another name. You'll see it. Arborio rice is considered another short grain rice. So these are all kind of names of rice that you could use in this recipe. So the short grain rice is wonderful because it has just that little bit of extra creaminess in it, which just adds lovely backdrop to this recipe with the egg. And it might be, as we work through the recipe, you might think, Emily, this is a little bit weird, but trust me on this one. It is such a great combination together. It's definitely a favorite of mine. So I'm going to start off with the short grain rice. We're using 1 cup of rice, and we're going to add 1 cup of water. So just kind of equal amounts here. So I'm just going to fill up my measuring cup here and get some water. Okay. Now, if you wanted to, you could use a vegetable or chicken broth here if you wanted to, but we're getting so much flavor with everything else that we're using. I just thought water was easier to use with the rice. Okay, so we're going to bring this to the boil. Now, this is actually also going to be where we have our vegetables. We're going to add our vegetables to this mixture. And what I love often is if you have a bag of frozen vegetables and you don't want to cook them separately, but you are cooking rice or even a pasta, for example, you can use the steam or the water if you're cooking pasta to just cook those vegetables quickly. And that's kind of what we're doing. So what that does is it helps retain the texture, so that nice crispness of the vegetables, and it just gives them a really nice color. So we are going to bring this to the boil, and then I have my lid handy because short grain rice takes usually about 20 minutes to cook. So if I was using a basmati or jasmine rice, it would be about half the time. And by the way, you can use any of those rices. It's really about the texture. So if you were all here, I'd be getting you to taste it at the end. So you're going to have to believe me and then make it at home and understand how that creaminess of this rice will work. Now, if you wanted to use a brown rice, you totally could. You're going to need a little bit more water, and you're also going to need a little bit more time. So you can use that. Now, you could also use leftover rice if you wanted to. So you just need a couple cups of rice for the recipe, and then you could steam the vegetables separately. Okay. So once this comes to the boil, I'm actually going to put the lid on and tuck it back there so we can kind of keep going with the recipe. But I did leave out, wanted to talk about eggs because I did leave out these containers. I have these eggs out here so that you can see how beautiful they are, the brown and white eggs. But this is how we buy our eggs in the cartons at the grocery store. They're refrigerated. And this is the best place to keep them in these containers in the refrigerator. And I remember as a kid, my mom had the little egg shelf on the side of the fridge. So she would take the time, to take the eggs out and put them in, as did everyone. But you don't need to do that. If you have an older fridge where you still have an egg shelf, and some newer fridge still, believe it or not, have those, you don't need to use those at all. It's really the best place to keep them in these egg containers because they are protected in here as well, which is nice. And put them in the refrigerator as opposed to on the door so that they're not kind of going in and out all the time. All right, this came to a boil quite quickly. So I'm just going to give it a stir. Okay. I'm going to put the lid on. And then I'm going to just tuck it onto my back stove here so that it's not kind of in our way. So what I'm doing is just going to reduce the heat on this kind of medium, low on my stove. So you will know your stove well. You just want to do a nice gentle cook on this. I'm also going to put the timer on because this is when I tend to forget things. Okay. All right. So that's kind of taken care of and we'll move on with everything else. So the eggs, that's what we were talking about. So these cartons are really important. And if you want to keep these are great because if you are going to a farmer's market or if you have a friend with a family farm or if you yourself have chickens, these come in super handy to store those eggs that you have on hand. Okay. So I'm going to just tuck these away over here for a moment. And I'm going to talk about our vegetables that we're using. So I love using color because we do kind of eat with our eyes first. So we're going to be using a nice bright red pepper, but this could be any sweet bell pepper that you have at home. Yellow, orange, green, whatever you want to use. And we don't need a large pepper here. I mean, you can totally use a larger pepper. If you wanted some spice, you could even use a hot pepper in place of this bell pepper, which would be fabulous. But we're just using a small red pepper for this. Now, the green is that we're going to be using is this bok choy. So I picked up a couple versions. I love using bok choy and stir fries and soups, and just as a side vegetable. So these are two versions of a bok choy. You can buy a large bok choy. Okay, this is a mini baby bok choy, so really cute. And this is a Shanghai bok choy. So this is a little bit of a darker stem, a little bit larger compared to this little guy. But they're interchangeable in a recipe. So if you only find the large bok choy or Shanghai bok choy, in this recipe, you can use whatever you'd like. Okay. I like picking up these little ones because oftentimes, especially if you're a smaller household, you can use one or two for yourself for a side dish, and then you can chop some up and use it in something else. Or you could chop it up, blanch it, and freeze it if you know you're not going to be using it all. So what I tend to do is just trim off the bottom. And then what these ones here, I soaked in some cold water just because I cut it in half lengthwise. You can kind of see the natural kind of grooves of the bok choy here. So I'd like to soak it for a little bit. I'll just kind of show you. That's kind of where some of that dirt likes to sneak in there. So soaking it and giving it a good rinse, you know that it's nice and clean and crisp. So this is also a great way to revive your bok choy. So if it's a little bit limp in the fridge, you can just kind of trim it up, clean it up, and keep it in some cold water for a bit, and you'll start to see how much it kind of plumps up and, comes back to life a little bit. So we're going to chop some of this. I'll do a little mixture of both here. We need 2 cups. So it just depends on, again, what size bok choy that you have. I'm just going to cut it lengthwise here and then give it a nice chop. Now, if you want, you can separate the stems from the leaves, but I actually like the different texture that it gives when we're steaming it. So you have a little bit more crunch. And I tend to cut the stems a little bit smaller, and then I leave the leaves a little bit larger, okay, because they'll just cook a little bit faster. So here again, I'm just going to chop these up a little bit smaller and then these leaves a little bit larger. Now, is this going to be 2 cups? We'll see. I'm just going to grab this measuring cup here. I might have to chop one more. And I'm not packing this in. I mean, you're more than welcome to. If you want to get a few extra vegetables in there, you definitely can. But that is those, it's essentially one Shanghai bok choy gave me 2 cups, which is perfect for this recipe. Okay, so I'm going to tuck this away. Now, Tracie, did we want to talk a little bit about bok choy? Because I know that that's something that we often use in our recipes on the OC website. And it is one of Tracie's favorites, just so you know. So that's why it is present. But
Yes.
there's a lot of benefits to eating the bok choy, isn't there?
Well, there is, but I just wanted to say, Linda decided to tell us we have to quit yoking around. Ha ha ha.
I
Thank you,
love
Linda.
it.
That was very good. So before we get into it, and then, it's this is what I love. So normally we didn't do it this time. We ask where you're from. People automatically started populating where they're from. So clearly we missed that. So before we get into bok choy, just hello to everyone. We've in Perth and Thunder Bay and Niagara on the Lake and even Los Alamos, New Mexico and Cambridge, so and Nova Scotia, Hamilton, Stainer. So hi to everyone, and there's lots of other places. But so let's talk about the recipe and Amherst. Thank you. Thank you, Margot. Yeah, she just popped that in there. So what I did was, because I you can't see it right now, but I popped the nutrient calculator on my phone and I was like, just for one serving of bok choy, I wanted the nutrient breakdown. So when we develop these recipes, and that's actually what happens, all the recipes are developed on the website. There's a lot of thought, and it goes into, the preparation, the ingredients we want to use, and trying to get the all the nutrients that we talk about, the 5 nutrients specifically for bone health, and then other nutrients that are needed for good overall health. And for calcium, there's 84 milligrams a serving for bok choy. It is more than broccoli. Now, I always point this out because if you've been on a few of these, I'm not a fan of broccoli. I love bok choy. There are other vegetables, and other ways to get your nutrients. So it's fascinating because when we found that out, I was like, I can't believe how much per serving. But the other part is the vitamin K is 10 micrograms. So is the magnesium. You're getting 10 micrograms for just one serving of bok choy. So all the ingredients play a role. And so when people say, but I want to switch it out, completely switch it out. But know that the total nutrient analysis will change. But that's when pop on the nutrient calculator. And if you want to put in broccoli, go right ahead. If you want to put in eggplant or whatever, green beans, whatever else, that way you can do it. But I think it's a really, I'm not sure if it's as common to eat as much bok choy. Definitely not as much as broccoli or peppers, that kind of ingredient. I think for everyday cooking for you know everyday households. What do you think, Emily?
I mean, it's more about the accessibility of these
Yeah,
ingredients, right? So if your grocery
exactly.
store carries them, then you
Yes,
might be intrigued to use them, or if you're comfortable cooking them. So here to say that bok choy is very easy to cook. And
yes.
the way we're cooking it is one of the easiest ways is essentially just steaming it. But if you are a fan of broccoli, for sure, that would be fabulous in here. And you can actually do broccoli the same way. I would cut it a little bit smaller so that it steams. But cauliflower would work really nicely here. Obviously, if you're using broccoli, Tracie's not coming for dinner, so you don't
No.
have to worry about that.
I
But
wish you well, though. I wish you a delicious meal, though. I
but
know
green
people
beans
are.
and frozen
Yeah,
vegetables. So here's
yeah.
where those frozen vegetables would come in really handy. So if they're already cut, you can take 2 cups of those frozen vegetables and just add it to your rice, just where we've added it, and they'll steam through and still have that really nice texture and flavor and color. So It's really about encouraging you to use what you have. But if you're willing to try some new ingredients, then this is always fabulous because if you think about the rest of the ingredients that we're using, most of them are, some are pantry staples that you
Yeah.
might have, and they're not kind of break the bank ingredients, which is amazing because oftentimes we think of dinner and we might think of, the cost of ingredients being prohibitive and things like that. But when we look to the pantry, there's a lot of things that, you may have that together you might not have combined them this way, which is, leading me to the steps that we're going to be doing for the main part of the recipe as well. But you might be surprised, which is kind of fun.
Well, it's also, I know there's a lot of core foods that we always talk about, and bok choy is one of them because of the nutrients that are in bok choy, broccoli, etc. And sometimes you're like, I just need something else. I just want to eat something other than those foods. So if you're not used to it, it's great. It switches things up. What I like also is that you can buy a really big one. But you can also buy the smaller ones. I have a whole package in my refrigerator, and I'm just going to end up pulling out a couple as I need them. And I'm just looking here. What do you think about fennel? Would it work in here?
Oh yeah, it would be a little bit crunchier, but fennel would be
Yeah,
great. I love that licorice flavor.
me
So for
too.
me, it would be okay. The rest of my family, not so much.
I
So
know. And not everyone likes fennel either. So these are just some suggestions, and these are just some ideas, but it's really what, you will use because having the egg and the chicken and the rice with whatever vegetables, like what a delicious meal. Emily, I'm so excited. What are we doing next?
we're going to marinate our chicken. And
Whoa,
so
exciting. Okay, so I'm going to let you marinate the chicken.
perfect. So I say marinate, but really we're using chicken thighs, and you could use chicken breast if you want. It really doesn't need to be tenderized. So often you hear the word marinate because you need to tenderize something, but we're really just doing this for flavor. So it's not something that you have to do and let sit for, tuck it in the fridge. Although if you need to, you totally can. We're just going to kind of continue on with the flow of the recipe. So here's where we get chicken gets a flavor boost, but then it accentuates the entire recipe. So I'm going to add a little bit of soy sauce, which, by the way, soy sauce, if you're doing gluten-free, this is one of the ingredients you want to read the label. Okay, so if you are cooking gluten-free for someone, I'm adding just a little bit of sugar. Okay, and that's to balance off. I have the sweet and a little bit of salty, and then I'm adding acid, which is my rice vinegar. Now, if you're wondering, Emily, I have a bottle of rice vinegar in my cupboard, and it says seasoned rice vinegar. Well, that means that it's got salt and sugar in it already. So if you have seasoned rice vinegar, you don't need to add the sugar, okay? Because it's already seasoned rice vinegar. So you can make that as a little note for those of you that have seasoned rice vinegar. If you just have regular rice vinegar, or you don't have rice vinegar at all, you have cider vinegar or white vinegar, you can add that sugar in there, and that's going to help. It almost feels like it's caramelizing it, even though that's not the process of cooking that we're doing. It does really add a nice element of flavor to the chicken. So I'm just stirring this all together. Okay. And I'm going to set this aside for a minute. So this is chopped boneless, skinless chicken thighs. You can use boneless, skinless chicken breast as well. Okay. 12 ounces is about 3 large thighs or 1 large chicken breast. So it's really about kind of, checking your packages or weighing out your ingredients. If you are not someone who weighs out your ingredients or has a scale, it is really, really helpful when you're kind of dealing with, we have two proteins here. We have the chicken thighs and the egg. So that's why I can use less of the chicken thighs and bump up the protein. You'll notice that there was still a good amount of protein. I think it was 28 grams per serving because the eggs are in there too. So together you get a really nice balance of the protein. Okay. So next step, we have some chicken broth. So this is where I'm introducing the chicken broth. So if you're going to be making chicken broth, you still can use it for your rice as well, but I'm going to use it because we're actually going to be poaching the chicken. Okay. So I'm going to add some flavor to the broth, and I'm using a shallot. So this is a shallot, okay, as opposed to a green onion. So in the States, you'll often hear the word scallion, and that's a green onion. And this little purple guy is a shallot. And they come in various sizes and lengths. I'm just calling for one. If you don't have a shallot, you could just use a little bit of onion or red onion. About half of a small onion would be perfect. And I just thinly sliced it, and I'm going to add it right into the broth. And the reason why I'm thinly slicing this is because this is actually going to stay in the broth. It not only is it going to flavor it, it's also going to become part of the bowl. So it's going to cook within the broth itself. So what I want to do is bring this to a simmer and also simmer it for a little bit so we pull some of the flavor of the shallot out as well. Okay. So essentially, I could start this and then do the chicken, or I could do the chicken and then start that, whatever's easier for you. But the smaller the chicken pieces, and this is up to you and how comfortable you are chopping. The bigger the pieces of chicken, it's going to take a little bit longer to cook all the way through. So if you cut them smaller, you kind of speed up the dish a little bit, which is really nice. And I have a nice large skillet here. So there's not a lot of liquid when you use a larger pan, but try not to use a big pot, okay? Because that just kind of takes time to cook and evaporate the liquid out. So here I'm going to be able to get the chicken spread out really nicely and kind of speed up the cooking time, which is nice. I'm just going to check on my rice back here too, because I did have a little bit of spillage because I turned it up just a little bit too much. Okay, so on to our eggs. I'm going to get our eggs ready here too, because this really kind of happens quick now. Besides the fact that I've been talking, it really doesn't take this long. It's very, very quick recipe. All right, so I'm going to get 4 eggs is what we're using here, and I'm going to just crack them in this bowl. And I always love doing this. There was a time when I went into grade schools and high schools and talked about eggs. And I always love talking about food. And yesterday was Canadian Agriculture Day, so it seems like a good time to continue that talk. But there's so many little things about eggs that you can share with friends over the table, just in discussion. Things like what's the difference between a brown egg and a white egg? There's nothing. They're the same. It's just different chickens that lay the eggs. And one of the things that I love talking about is when eggs have to be cracked. So often, you'll see that egg being cracked on the side, and that's not my preference. If it's something that you've done forever and you can't change, that's totally okay. But I tend to crack it on a flat surface. You could also crack the eggs together like this, okay? And then get it in the bowl. But eventually you're going to have one egg, and you can make it a game, really. Which egg will crack? It's kind of fun. And then get that fourth egg in there. So I just do this in case of any shell getting into the bowl, or it's just, a little bit easier to do that and keep the shells out of the bowls. Now, inevitably, there might be a shell that gets in there, and that's okay too, because you'll be able to scoop it out. Okay, so I'm just going to, you can do this with a fork, by the way. You don't have to use a whisk. Okay, and I'm just going to lightly beat the eggs up here and get these ready. And I always love looking at eggs. They just right away you can tell that they're just gonna add that creaminess. So we're gonna have two levels here. We're gonna have that nice creamy rice, and we're also gonna have the eggs cook up into that nice kind of soft scramble, and you'll see why. So I have a nice simmer happening here. Okay, and what I'm gonna do is stir my chicken and all the liquid into this mixture. Okay. Because we don't want to lose that flavor we gave the chicken. So I'm going to just spread it out. So obviously we've brought down the temperature. So the simmering has stopped, and we want to return it to the simmer so that we get the chicken cooking. And then you're going to be kind of stirring this around so that it cooks evenly, which is really important. Okay. So my eggs are here. I'm going to add a little bit more flavor to the eggs by adding some green onions. So this could be chives. This could be more shallot if you had it. You could even add some garlic to this if you wanted, if that's the flavor that you were going for. If you're not a fan of green onions, you can leave it out. It's not necessary, but it does give it a nice little bit of flavor. You could use other fresh herbs. Parsley would be nice in here. A little bit of fresh basil would also be nice. Cilantro. I say that, and sometimes I feel like people cringe when they hear cilantro because it's not always a favorite herb for many. And then we're just going to stir this around. So, guess what? We're almost ready to put our veggies into our saucepan. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring over this rice to show you how it's steamed up beautifully here. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of move it around. It's absorbed the water nicely. And see all that steam that's coming up? At least I hope you can. This is where I'm going to add my vegetables in. So my red pepper and that chopped bok choy are going to go in here. And I'm going to stir this around so that, and then I'm going to put the lid back on so that these veggies steam and finish cooking with the rice. Okay. And you don't have to put this back on the heat unless you want to have a softer vegetable. Okay. And this is also at a point where if you did want a softer vegetable, if you wanted the bok choy and the red pepper to be a little bit softer, you could add a splash more water or some chicken broth to it, and then it'll absorb that extra liquid as well. Okay. Now you can see if you take a look at my chicken, it's happening pretty quickly because I did cut it fairly small, that it's already changed color. Okay, so that's one sign of protein. You'll always see that it tends to firm up and change color when it's cooking. Okay, now we're benefiting from poaching this because we had the flavor on the chicken, but we're also simmering it in a flavorful broth. So we are poaching it so that it's a nice tender consistency of the chicken, but it's also getting lots of flavor. And we're putting the eggs in this mixture as well. So we're going to get kind of soft, fluffy eggs, but they too are also going to benefit from that flavor and poach in this liquid as well. So something a little bit different. Perhaps you haven't cooked eggs this way, but I love it because it's essentially all in one pan. I mean, we have the rice over there. By the way, you could do the rice in a rice cooker. I forgot to mention that. And then just put the veggies on top in your rice cooker and stir that in. So technically, let's call it a one pot. And we're cooking the eggs right in here as well because it will get all the flavor. So if you're wondering why I haven't seasoned the eggs, because there's the benefit of the rice vinegar as well as the soy sauce in here that will help flavor those eggs. But by all means, once it's hot and ready to cook, or sorry, ready to eat, you can taste it and see if you need a little pinch of salt and pepper. I never oppose to a little bit of extra pepper, but you probably won't need the salt just because of the soy sauce in there. So Tracie, how's it looking so far to you? I know you're probably hungry. And
Sorry, I
then we
couldn't
can,
find the
oh,
off mute button. I was
that's
like,
okay.
where's the button? You know what? No, it looks great. And we did get some questions. I'm just going to pull them up here. Um, one question is there a taste difference between shallots and yellow onion?
Oh, that's a great question. I find shallots are a little bit more mild, and I often use them raw. So in a salad dressing, I will mince it up and whisk it in, as opposed to white onion or sorry, yellow onion, cooking onion. I wouldn't necessarily do that. But so I tend to find shallots have a bit more sweetness, much like a red onion. I find it a little bit sweeter, but shallots, a lot of people will say that it tastes like it has a combination of onion and garlic.
Hmm.
So they will use a shallot if they don't want to use onions and garlic. So I think it's something that it's great for, again, small households because even if a recipe calls for a small onion, you could use a shallot. You don't typically get as many shallots in a bag as you do onions, but if you know it's something that you don't use very often, shallots are a great staple to have on hand. And if you don't use them very often, you can keep these in the refrigerator. And then they tend to last a little bit longer. But the great part is that you can also buy one at a time if you need to. So it's a great little it's a great little allium to keep around. So it's definitely within that family of onions.
Good question. All right then. I have another question, but I'm gonna hold on to that one because I think where are we at with the recipe now?
So right now I need to check to make sure that the chicken
Okay.
is cooked. So it, again, cutting it smaller cooks
Check.
faster.
Okay.
So it takes usually about 5 to 7 minutes, possibly 10. Again, it's just varies on how big you cut the chicken. So how am I going to do this? I could, if I wanted to, I could take my thermometer, okay, take out a piece. This is very scientific, and then poke that piece and see if it's cooked. It is cooked. Um, that's one way to do it. You can also take out a piece, cut it in half, and make sure it's no longer pink inside. So if you're using a thigh, what ends up happening, it's a little bit of a darker meat. So definitely making sure that it's no longer pink. Breast you'll tend to see a little bit easier because it is a white meat. So because this is cooked, I can move on to the next step, which is adding my eggs. So I don't want this kind of at a rolling boil. I want it kind of just at a gentle simmer. I can control that a little bit. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is slowly add this mixture into the skillet. Okay. So I'm going to kind of just slowly add that in all around. Make sure I get it all in. Okay. And then what you can do is actually kind of just swirl the pan a little bit if it's easy enough for you. I'm trying to get kind of larger curds of eggs in here. Okay. And then I'm just going to go with a spoon and kind of stir it. So what I'm looking for is the eggs to set, and eggs cook so quickly. That's why so many people love them for kind of quick dinners because it doesn't take long to cook them. But you can see that it just forms these nice, soft, tender curds. And look what else it's doing. It's absorbing all that broth that has the flavor of the chicken broth, the chicken, the soy sauce. So the eggs are going to be absolutely light, fluffy, and airy. So this only takes a couple of minutes just to kind of stir it and set the eggs, just like so. And I hate to tell you, but it's done. I don't hate to tell you. The good part is when it's done, that means I get to eat it. So I just turned off the heat. Okay. And I'm going to bring over our rice mixture because I can scoop up some of our rice mixture into a bowl. Okay. So this is fabulous because you can have really any rice and vegetable mixture as your base. And then this kind of soft chicken and egg mixture with some of the broth kind of covers it really nicely, almost like a sauce. Think about it as a sauce. And then it gets into all the nooks and crannies of the rice and the vegetables. So I'm going to get a scoopful here, maybe 2 scoopfuls. Okay. And then just like that, put this over here. And then I'm going to spoon some of our chicken and egg mixture over top. Okay. And this is, I can't tell you how comforting this is. This is just like nice and soft. If you're feeling kind of blah, like on a gray day, this is a nice bowl of comfort. And then I'm just going to sprinkle a few sesame seeds on top. If you like a kick of heat, this is really nice with chili, like crispy chili oil. I'll bring this up here so you can take a close look at it. Okay. And then you just have to get a spoon and dig in because it's so comforting. Um, it's like a bowl of oatmeal or mashed potatoes, except you're gaining 28 grams of protein with this one, as well as lots of color and calcium and all our other nutrients that we're looking for.
Oh,
What do you
that
think,
looks
Tracie?
so, honestly, it looks so pretty. I love when it's all about, yes, it has to be delicious, but when it looks so pretty. And, sometimes people, I would just caution this. We're in a rush all the time and you want to crank that heat for the broth. How is it? We're just gonna, yum, right? Yum.
If
Don't
you've
crank
not
it.
had
And don't
It,
stir really fast with the
mhm.
eggs, right? Or it's just gonna, you're not gonna get that beautiful, fluffy egg and
It's
the tender chicken.
it really is velvety. Like the eggs cook
Yeah,
this way in that little bit of broth. You don't need a lot. It's just super velvety and creamy, and that's what almost makes it like a sauce, except
yeah.
again, you're benefiting from the fact that it's the eggs that you're using and not like a cream sauce or anything like that. It's really, really tasty, guys. Like if you have not made this, I don't know how else to convince you other than to tell you to try this because it's so good.
And really we're it's a quicker cooking demo than sometimes we normally do. And that's even with us talking. So if you do this at home, it's going to take you no time at all. And I do actually have, so we ended up getting some questions and comments. Nancy's like, you had me at mashed potatoes. Yes, that'll be another cooking demo. But but this is equally as comforting. Um, Someone asked that if they don't have rice vinegar, could they use cooking wine instead? What do you think?
You could use cooking wine for sure.
Okay.
It's only a little bit, and it's really about the acidity level. So
Yeah.
cooking wine is kind of similar to, it's about 4 or 5% similar to vinegar. The vinegar does help in this cooking method a little bit too, and wine, again, that acidic component will help with that. Um, and as I said, you can use other vinegars too. I wouldn't use a red wine vinegar. It just tends to be a little
Yeah.
bit potent, and it would change the color a little bit, but for sure, that would be a great substitute for you.
Okay. Here's an interesting question. I'm going to assume yes, but I think it's what your preference is. Can you eat raw bok choy?
Oh, yeah, you can.
It's
I've
just,
eaten raw bok choy. Yeah.
yeah, it's part of, correct me if I'm wrong, it's part of the cabbage family.
So I tend to often, because this is kind of crunchy like
Yeah.
celery, but not quite as hard as celery. So you can, I don't know if you could hear that. Sorry,
Can
if you can hear that crunch, I'll eat it. It's a
Yeah.
lot, it's a lot more tender. And when you eat it raw, I find it has a little bit more of a peppery bite. Not peppery like arugula, but it does have a little bit of a bite to it. But I mean, now I should say, if you don't eat kale raw and some of those other greens,
Yeah.
and because they bother you, bok choy may be on that list too. So, know yourself, know your body, and see how it goes. But I have eaten bok choy like this. It's quite tasty.
I did just double check. It's part of the Chinese cabbage. It's a version of. So, and it's all, yeah, if that's how you enjoy it, absolutely. Another crunchy vegetable. Another question was if somebody is watching their sugar, can they omit it or do they really need it? Or maybe is there a way
You can
to,
omit it. It just, the reason why it's there, it helps balance the salt of the soy and the acid of the vinegar. So it's just a little technique that's used in many different cuisines, cooking technique that it balances things out. But for sure, you can leave the sugar out. And again, if you're using a seasoned rice vinegar, it's already going to be present, so you wouldn't need to use the sugar at all.
so I got another great question. Is this something you could use like ground chicken or turkey with? Like the ground meat versus you chopping up the meat?
So I did try it with some ground chicken, and it it absorbs more of the sauce, so it wasn't as creamy, if that makes
Okay.
sense, because there was a little bit more. But you can use it, and just you end up with a little bit more broth, which is totally okay. I liked the texture component of having the pieces of chicken. But if you're not into chopping chicken, because I know a lot of people aren't, the ground chicken or turkey would work for sure.
Okay. That's great.
And I would use the same amount, 12 ounces.
All right. Well, so here's the unrelated question. It's still related. It's about eggs. So, somebody has a question for peeling a hard cooked egg, a hard boiled egg,
Mm.
because they end up kind of pulling all the white off with the shell. Who hasn't done that? Do you have any tips?
I get as frustrated just as everybody
I
else.
know.
My tip is ask my mother to do it because she's excellent at it.
Okay. Hey, everybody, get your pens. We're gonna call Emily's mom. She's
Yeah.
gonna.
Um, but I'll give you my mother's tips. So she tends to use older eggs because they tend to not that how she explains it, but as the egg gets a little bit older, it tends to pull away from the shell. So there's an air pocket that helps in peeling them. Some people swear by adding a little bit of baking soda into the water or vinegar, that again, that acidic component to help break down the shell to pull it apart. I have had success with putting eggs in cold water, bringing them up to the boil, and I think turning it off. I'm trying to remember the time. It's just depends on if you want jammy eggs or not jammy eggs.
Yeah.
Um, Turn it off when it's boiling and just let them sit in the hot water. So not boiling them, but cooking them in the hot water, usually about 10 minutes, and then dunking them in ice cold water. And that kind of shock helps separate the white, kind of that coating on the inside of the shell, so that when you go to peel them, and I peel them in water as well.
Oh, that's another good tip.
Yeah, so I peel them in the cold water and then, you know, pat them dry with paper towel or a clean tea towel and then put them in the refrigerator covered right away. So I'm an avid lover of hard cooked eggs, and I tend to call them hard cooked eggs because that's how I cook them. People also swear by putting them in their Instant Pot and have had quite good success with that. So if you're willing to try a few things, and I wouldn't do like a dozen eggs at a time, but do
Yeah,
2 eggs at a time and see what method works for you. It's also a great time for you to test how long, like, do you really like a 3-minute poached egg or do you really like a five? And these are things that you can kind of, work through, because sometimes that 5-minute egg ends up turning into that hard cooked egg that, maybe you'll just use for egg salad instead of, having it with toast in the morning for breakfast.
absolutely. No, that's all great. And we had a couple of, actually more than a couple. So many people are like, I'm definitely trying this. And we have a couple of people who are like, this is my very first cooking webinar with you.
Oh,
So
welcome.
welcome. We're very excited. We have new people. We love that. So there's more coming up. And before we kind of, I'm just making sure the full some people are asking about other nutrients. It's all on the recipe webpage. I've
Hmm.
shared the link in the chat. And oh, we do have a couple of other first timers. Please come back. We have another one coming up, but I'm going to give the apron away now. Well, Emily, that just looks so good.
It's
You
really good, guys.
continue
I
to
can't lie to you.
enjoy. So, congratulations to Karen Norman from Yorkton, Saskatchewan.
Hmm.
Yay, you're going to get the apron. So I'll contact you and we'll arrange for you to get that. And before everyone goes, I'm going to quickly share my screen. Thank you to our partners. Get cracking. Thank you for helping us do webinars like this, cooking demos like this, and to Emily. Sorry, my house line's just going off as we say that. And there are recorded webinars you can access on our website through OC Replay. This has also been recorded. You'll get that in your inbox. We have our podcast, access again to the nutrient calculator, but we have two new webinars coming up in March. We have the role of nutrient dense food and health. That's with registered dietitian Lori Barker. You can register for that now on the website. And with Emily, we are going to be making everything seasoned Greek yogurt bagels. That's right. Quick recipe, small batch, 15 grams of protein per bagel with this recipe. It's not difficult, but this may be a little daunting. It's the webinar for you. So join us on Thursday, March 12th. We will look forward to seeing you then. And subscribe if you're not to our e-newsletter. We are on Instagram, Facebook, podcasts on YouTube, music, and on Apple Podcasts as well. Thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure. Emily, thank you again. And
Thank you.
everyone, we will see you next time. To all our new people, we look forward to seeing you again. And to all our core folks, thanks for supporting us. Have a great day, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.